So thank you for inviting me. Just purely technical question. Do you hear me well? No problems with mic. I should move. Wonderful. Second, let's go back to the content. You know, when people are talking about North Korea, what is the most common image everybody who is in habit of reading newspapers is likely to have? It's a Stalin country. It's a very brutal family dictatorship, and of course, it's a kind of perfectly chemically pure Stalinist state. Most, like all stereotypes, all these remarks, there are three, each one has a seed of truth, but at the same time is seriously misleading. Because when now people come to Pyongyang, they sort of expect to see starvation and destitution, and they are sort of surprised. Because they discover that Pyongyang has, for example, a booming restaurant scene. And there are no dead people laying dead bodies on the streets. Most of the people are extremely well dressed. Well, not extremely, they are dressed in cheap, poor Chinese fashion style dress, but it's not clearly a destitution. And what is more important, which is not always realized, the last 10 years, what is interesting, roughly from the time when the international sanctions were first introduced, the last 10 years used to be the time of modest but noticeable economic growth in North Korea. If you believe Bank of Korea estimate, attention, I'm not talking Bank of North Korea estimates, which of course should never be believed, but I'm talking Bank of South Korea estimates. They believe that over the last roughly 12 years, the average annual growth was 1.4%. There were ups and downs. And the good question is, where does it come from? And then you come to restaurant, one of many restaurants, very often without any signboard. You have to know the place in Pyongyang. You get in, and you have good food, and the bill comes, and they charge you maybe $20, or maybe even $30 in the most expensive places. Of course, such a meal would cost here maybe $100 or more. But then you make small math. Wow. The average official salary in North Korea is now something like 75 American cents a month. 75 cents a month, not even 75 cents, 0.75 US dollars a month. And how can people possibly spend an amount which is roughly 2 annual salaries for one meal? Well, first of all, nobody lives on salaries. And second, North Korea is a very important remark, since long ago ceased to be a perfect Stalinist country. Yes, it was such a country. Yes, in the days of Kim Il-sung, it was, as I usually say, Kim Il-sung managed to out-Stalin Joseph Stalin himself. By Stalin's view, many of his policies would appear too excessive. But it's an ancient history. We have now an entire generation which does not know this, which don't have first-hand memories of these days, when everything belonged to the state. I will just repeat very briefly what happened with North Korean economy in the early 1990s. It emphasized self-reliance. It was their major slogan, self-reliance. But surprised, and they tried to produce everything they could possibly need within their own national economy. And surprisingly, it was so inefficient as a result. It would be inefficient anyway, but excessive militarization and self-reliance policy made it even less efficient. And as a result, it was remarkably dependent on the Soviet and East European aid. And in the early 1990s, the aid was discontinued, and the North Korean economy essentially folded in. We have no idea about the scale of decline. Because if you start asking me about statistics, I will tell you nobody knows. Because statistics is remarkably poorly collected in North Korea, and everything which is collected and which should not be taken seriously is still either secret or top secret. So North Korea ceased publishing any economic statistics in the early 1960s. Since then, only foreign trade and population Two only figures, plus some information about harvest and nutrition. Only three indicators which are sort of more or less reliable. Anyway, so economy falls. Estimate is that the industrial output roughly halved within the 1990s. Agriculture suffered a massive starvation which killed about 500,000 people. You're likely to see estimates of 2 or 3 million. Don't take it too seriously. 500,000 or slightly more, but it still was the largest humanitarian disaster in East Asia since a great leap forward in China almost 60 years ago. And people discovered that their salaries suddenly became useless, and they relied on the government rations, which were given essentially for free. They were not forthcoming. So people essentially some people starved to death, most people survived. How did they survive? Because they rediscovered market economy. The farmers, which was illegal, they went to the mountains. If you go to North Korea, you see a lot of irregularly shaped fields and the mountains, private fields, which officially don't exist. People began to sell stuff, buy stuff, a lot of illegal business and smuggling of everything which is, I would say, smuggleable to China and back, all kinds of economic activity. No, it was not a sophisticated capitalism, it was a bit like African-style capitalism, but it was enough eventually to overcome the famine and eventually provide a measure of the economic growth. However, once you have capitalism, you have to have entrepreneurs, you have to have entrepreneurial class, you have to have business people, largely business women, and some businessmen. Have no time to say explain, but just make a remark that women tended to be overrepresented in the North Korean and the new North Korean economic model. And here an interesting story, which I'm going to talk for another 45 minutes, starts. People began small. Well, not exactly, not all, as we will see later, but in most cases they began small. Somebody learned that his neighbor dug out from an ancient grave some strange old pot, greenish side. And he bought this pot for 10 kilos of rice. And then they sold it for $100, which would be enough for him and his family to live for 2 years, or maybe 1 year at that time. I'm looking 1997. And it was auctioned for $10,000 as a priceless piece of Koryo-era telephone. Or somebody, I'm telling real stories, somebody was a hard-working teacher. She discovered that she is not paid. And then her distant relatives was visiting from China, and she said, what if you help me to buy dry pollock fish? She bought dry pollock fish, and the Chinese relatives gave her enough money to live for 1 year. And she said, wow, why should I teach the kids? She immediately retired, and she began a full-time entrepreneur. And many such stories. People began small, but some of them were successful because they were smart, lucky, and ruthless, and they began to grow and grow and grow. And by the late 1990s, roughly, maybe a bit earlier, 95, 97, we had people whose operational capital was measured in tens of thousands, correct? Tens of thousands of US dollars. Maybe a bit more even. And how could you go? Where? It was okay to run a small shop on the market. It was okay to have a small workshop where you would hire 5 teenage girls, all stories are real, 5 teenage girls to make counterfeited Chinese tobacco. Well, it was okay, of course, to maybe hire somebody to look after your beehives. You put it on the mountain, and then you sold honey. Wow. But if you have a lot of money, what can you do? And the government took a very ambivalent approach to the development. Because of the political reasons, they could not really accept it and admit it. But they did not want to completely, they did try occasionally to wipe it out. But usually they did not try hard because they understood if they succeed, the family would probably come back. And in many cases, low-level enforcers, police, and not only police, were on the payroll of this new entrepreneurial class and had not the slightest idea to follow the orders from above. Because above they would just know, pat them outside, good guy, you will be promoted 5 years later. And these people giving nice cash to them. And their salaries are small. If you are just a junior police official, you are not rich. Used to be. Now you are rich if you know from whom you are taking payrolls. So, and the discovery was, why not make thousands of richer North Koreans in the late 1990s? You invest money into a private business which should be presented officially as a state business. And so this kind of pseudo-public enterprises emerged. Actually, right now I'm writing an article, hopefully it will be maybe a series of articles, with participation of that young gentleman, another member of our research group, and another member is not here. So we are writing an article, Roy Peter Watt, and yes, an article dealing with this type of entrepreneurial activities. Government, well, private enterprises, which are disguised as government enterprises. And this is a very common form of North Korean business. I would say that vast majority of larger North Korean private enterprises are really registered and on paper disguised as government companies. There are 3 ways how it can be done. Let's start from the most common, obviously. Again, we don't have statistics. Let's start from the most common approach, which is used by people with relatively small amount of their operational capital. It's very simple. You go to the government and you create something and you register it as your own, as government business. Usually restaurants. I mentioned this wonderful restaurant here in Pyongyang, and it's not only in Pyongyang. If you go to the countryside, you see the same situation. And in 2010, Yang Moon-soo and Kim Byung-yeon, who did a bit of study again, I would quote Marcus Nolan, who said, "Don't believe any statistics from North Korea which comes with a decimal point attached." But according, well, they had a bit of too many decimal points, but it looks like that roughly 3/4 of all restaurants and well over half of all shops in North Korea are private, but they all are registered as state enterprises. So if you come to a Pyongyang restaurant and after a good feast, you can ask, is it government property? And of course your manager and your guys say, oh, in our people's country everything belongs to the people, it's government, not government, it's people. Blah, 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 blah. But when you drink it, you ask, does it have a tongju? Tongju, the word, well, which is not understood by the South Koreans, as a matter of fact. They usually have to respell it, because it's a French mixture. The first word is tong, money, which is authentic Korean, and another chu master is Sino-Korean. In Korean will be chongju, master of the money, or I would say lots of the money. It's how the lots of the money, it's how the new business class of North Korea is known. This person with such a lofty title, lot of the money is in that shop. So the deal is, imagine there is a woman, back then in her early 40s, and her husband disappeared. He was arrested. He was, as a matter of fact, in the political police, in the secret police. But, well, it does not guarantee your security. Back in the 1980s, she would probably go to prison herself too. But we are talking about liberal and forgiving times of Kim Jong-il, when, I repeat, the scale of repression decreased significantly compared to what it used to be under Kim I. Kim III seems to be more brutal than Kim II, but again. Anyway, so she was essentially left alone, and her friends gave her secretly a small amount of first sum, a couple of $1,000, so she could start a business. She started a noodle shop. How it was done? She went to the city hall, People's Committee, and she registered herself, her shop. Officially, it was the state committee who, because of their love and responsibility in regard to their people, they opened this shop, the noodle shop. Actually, she paid for construction material, which was freely available. She hired workers who did renovation. She bought furniture. She hired waitresses. She hired cooks. She hired everything. Actually, she was not working alone. She was working with few friends. It was a kind of, if you like, joint venture, a kind of, not too secret, how to say something, I forgot. Partnership. It was a partnership. And what is interesting in North Korea? The North Korean capitalists discovered a lot of ideas, more or less independently. We have partnerships. We have sort of actions. We have what is important, shares in English, shares, чусик. And we, as I recently discovered, they even have sort of chain shops emerging right now. Anyway, so, and she was running. Her duty was to deliver a certain amount of money to the city council, officially. It was not bribe, because she was running on paper a state enterprise. On paper. In real life, she was saving certain money. She did very creative accounting to underreport her earnings, and she paid a bit of additional money to make sure that if people will not investigate her creativeness too carefully. And she had a very nice lifestyle. Or another story. We had a police officer who made good money by smuggling protected species to China. And, well, we don't care about people, why should we care about deer? Anyway, so they made good money by smuggling this money into China. And as a side show, he opened a restaurant. And he asked his wife to take charge of this enterprise, largely. But he himself also was sort of involved. Same scheme, registration, official payments, as if it was a state enterprise. Of course, you have this signboard saying, so such and such city council, Department of the Public Interest, and eatery number 27 or something. But, well, everybody knows to whom it belongs, as a matter of fact. So this type of scheme is allowed. So in the same way you can open, say, a shop, just normal retail outlet, or alternatively, trucks and buses, which is another very interesting area where most of the operations are essentially privately owned but disguised as state operations. Because historically, North Korea, essentially the major means of public intercity transportation was railway. And when in the early 1990s people began to trade, vendors began to travel from one place to another. And it means that they needed ways to go, to travel, and to deliver their merchandise. And railway, well, they did use railway, but it was probably usually not enough. So new enterprises began to pop up, buses and trucks, which were going on fixed routes, delivering the passengers and their merchandise, because very few, if any, of these people went to other places because they just wanted to do a bit of sightseeing. I've seen such people, as a matter of fact, there are such people, but clearly very few. Most of people go because of business, because they are making money. And one story, there was a guy who made good money in a different business, of which I will tell you a bit later. And when he made this money, he decided that it was a good time to have a kind of, to diversify. So he opened, he decided to start a bus company. Bus company. How it was done? He went to Pyongyang, he had money. And he went to Pyongyang and he made an agreement with a large foreign trade company, which was officially owned by a government agency. This foreign trade company will be a separate topic we are going to start talking in a few minutes. But now it's sort of slightly borderline case, but slightly borderline case. So this company officially prepared papers to buy 2 old used buses in China, a bigger one and a smaller one. Both buses together would cost $12,000 and $8,000, $20,000. He himself invested $12,000. He was an owner, and he had, I would say, controlling part, larger part of the shares. But what is interesting, there are other investors, including $2,000 each, were invested by people whom he was going to hire, sort of hire, you see, we'll see later, it was not really hiring in our understanding, as drivers. Sounds strange. Why should driver pay money to be employed? You will see later. It makes perfect sense. So they got this $20,000, for this $20,000, he went to China illegally. Yes, he was a kind of, he could basically apply for passport, but it was such a mess, such a pain in the neck. So for him it was just easier to go there to sort out things and come back illegally, crossing the river. It was a time when it was early 2000s, when the border control was very lax. And he got this bus. And the buses went from the city where he lived to another city. It's about 100 some kilometers. Very poor and very roads. So it was essentially one-day trip, not two-way, one-way trip to one day. So they departed in the morning. They arrived in late afternoon to the destination city. They stood there overnight. The crew consisted of 3 people. There are always 3 people in a North Korean bus: driver, mechanic, and conductor. And they all were partners of the partnership. Even the conductor paid $500, but he said, I hired these girls not because they paid money, and not because of their good looks. I would prefer money and good looks, but it was not a major condition. Major condition was connection with government and road police. Anyway, so, and how it was done? This bus went one night, returned next day, and there was a deal. There was a fixed amount which changed because of inflation of the amount of money the crew paid to him. He essentially rented the buses to the crew, and they paid the money as a right to take part in the activity. They got basically they got a fixed amount they gave to the owner, and everything else they made was left with them. The large bus was could seat 40 people. Occasionally they managed to pack much more. And one of the things which surprised him when he came to China, it was the buses which traveled according to their timetable. Because in his situation was you had to use every seat, and if it means that somebody will have to spend 1 hour in a bus, tough luck. So because 40 seats, 25 seats would suffice to pay this established amount of money, and what was important, the crew paid for the petrol and oil and the basic repairs. Serious repairs would be paid by the owner, small repairs by the crew. And it was important because he explained, it's how I made them to stay. Have I paid it? They would wait. I asked, why did you do it? And he said, I would have no way to control how much they really earn. And of course, they would be stealing money from me. I understand. They would never tell me really how much they earn. So the best way was just to have fixed amount and no cheating. And his bosses, who gave him permission to use the bus, had essentially the same logic. Because twice a year he took money, he had to deliver $20,000 a year, which was roughly the same amount that he spent on this, to his supervisors, to his protectors in Pyongyang. And this is how such things are operational. Another guy, he began from one truck, and he ended up together with friends, it was a partnership, running 7 trucks, specializing in moving bulky stuff like cement, sugar, salt. Salt from private salt fields. Yongjeon, how do you translate? Yongjeon? Salt fields.
Salt flats.
Salt
Flat.
salt flat, from private salt flat to the biggest wholesale markets. I'm talking about, say, 2005, 2007, when it was Canson, which is now not really functioning anymore on the area scale. So this is how things. We have buses, we have trucks. But this is the same idea. So, and if you look at paper of all these 7 trucks, every single truck was registered with a government company. In this case, it's 2 buses. It was a foreign trade company. In his case, he took 7 trucks and he registered it with different companies. And what is interesting, it depended on the position of the government agency, not companies, agencies, how much you would pay. The best registration was with the military. Second best with the political police. The lowest with the normal civilian agency. Because number plates of the military would help a lot in case of some checks or whichever. So you had to pay for protection from the military, essentially. Of course, people in the military unit who agreed to register these buses probably have never ever seen the trucks. It doesn't matter. So this is how things began operation. But it's still, we are talking about, you can invest $10,000 in a restaurant. Oh, funny thing about this. Something. I mentioned the guy who made money on protected species, yeah? What was interesting and very typical, and I'm going to mention it again because I've heard very similar stories a number of times. When I was talking to him about his business, he said, I asked him how much it would cost a bowl of noodles to pay. We are talking 2006 roughly. And he said, 2,000 won. And how much did you pay to your workers? He said, it depends, usually 10,000 won. Wow, I said, are you telling me that you paid to them every month their monthly wage would start to buy 5 bowls of rice in your, as you admitted, second-class restaurant? He said, yes. But I gave them rations. Now later I was translating him when he was talking to somebody. In English, I was translating from Korean to English. There was a professional translator who was lost. I had to explain because it's something really mind-blowing. And this is why, what you are talking, why are you talking? It's much better. And I said, why are you talking about rations? Who are you? Are you party committee? Are you food department of the city committee? No, he said. And I discovered what was very funny. North Korean employees, they are so used to the idea that employer gives them not only money, money is a pocket, small pocket, money. What is important? Rations. So what he did, and then I discovered that many private entrepreneurs used to behave in this way. Some of them still do it, but less frequently now. People are getting used to capitalism now. But what he did, he went to the market and for market prices bought all basic items which for decades used to be supplied by the state. Every employee in North Korea since December 1957 was eligible to 700 grams of grain a day, plus 2 liters of soya sauce, plus a certain number of eggs, and so on and so on and so on. What is interesting, in many cases, maybe in most cases, the private entrepreneurs, apart from giving money, they also spend their own capital on buying rations, and then delivering it essentially for free, because in the old system, rations were essentially given for free, a small token price only, to their employees. It looks irrational, but it's about our tradition. Or about other story,
one of these entrepreneurs, it was a funny story, he explained that he sometimes had to hire 5 people. It's another business I'm going to talk about, but because we are just mentioning this power of tradition, he said he had to fire people, and they asked why. Usual reason was theft. They were stealing stuff he was producing. And the stuff he was producing was actually needed oil. It was extremely well. So, much appreciated. But he mentioned other reasons, and one of them was immoral behavior. And what? Well, if a man, or especially a woman, was sleeping around, I had no choice, but I had to fire him or her. Why? Well, it's my duty. I was a manager. I had to take care of the moral behavior of my people. Well, he behaved like a good party secretary. Anyway, and obviously he didn't see anything strange about it. Like, and he also said that he was very careful. He checked the normal rations as they used to be in this area, he was in this area, back in the 1980s, and he delivered rations to his workers according to the standards of the late 1980s. And he said, at least, he said, they were very happy. I would not buy it for 100%, because every employer will tell you that his or her workers are always very happy, and he or she probably believes it, which is not necessarily the case. Nonetheless, having said that, so they were talking about small business, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. But if you have, what if you have really good money? Not just 10,000, but say 50,000, 100,000. And there are people who have such money. If I have time left, when should I finish? Go. Yes, so I obviously will have time left. If I have time left, I will tell you about explosive growth of the real estate prices in Kenya. You know. Anyway, so if you have money, how would you do it? What would you do? And here, you are likely to use a huge loophole in the North Korean laws, which developed as early as the late 1970s. And I'm talking about the Hwa-Pori-Hwa-Sa, which are better to be translated. I usually, when I write articles, I usually say foreign exchange earning company. But to be short, let's say foreign trade company. What is it? All communist states follow the Soviet model, which goes back to the early 1920s, which, in this model, state has an absolute monopoly on the foreign trade. If you are a state, well, if you produce something for sale overseas in a your factory, you don't sell it yourself. With very few exceptions, you were supposed to send to the central government, which had a foreign trade ministry, and the foreign trade ministry would negotiate the deal and would pocket entire hard currency earned as a kind of reward for your efficiency. You would be probably given something, but not that much. It was the case in North Korea until the late 1970s, and then they changed the line. North Korea, under Kim Il-sung, long time ago, quietly abolished the central government monopoly of the foreign trade. Starting from the late 1970s, many North Korean government agencies were allowed to establish their own foreign exchange earning enterprises. In most cases, it was the assumption that these people will get money which is necessary to finance their operations. And in some cases, it was a bit strange. Well, it was the late 1970s. And the number of such companies dramatically increased in the late 1990s. Now, again, we don't know how many such companies exist, about 300 to 400. And most of these companies were established by very strange agencies, like, say, the Korean People's Army, the General Staff. They have Department of Roads, and the Department of Roads, General Headquarters, have their own foreign currency earning company. The intelligence department have their own foreign currency earning company, and they are not selling maps of Seoul and shooting pens, no. And big military units. Each one has its own company. Local government has its own companies, and so on and so on. Party Central Committee has a lot of companies. The problem is, what are you going to sell in a country which produces little? Theoretically, many of these companies were established to sell some kind of specific goods which were produced by the founding kind of brand, the founding agency, like, steel or coal or something. But in most cases, what is produced by the Department of Road Construction of the Korean State Army? What can they sell?
Rocks.
Well, probably rocks and sand. So initially, probably this is what they did, and they soon discovered that they're not making good money. So actually, what happened? There is a small, on the international market, North Korea sells what? Mineral resources. Now, if you look at the structure of North Korean exports, 43% is coal. Coal is the king, 43% of the entire export last year. Mineral resources, seafood, and some exotic stuff, like, say, herbal medicine, herbs which are used for this traditional medicine, sometimes very exotic, like, frog oil, frog's oil. Yes, yes, they sell it. You harvest a particular type of frogs. Probably you don't want to know what you do with the frogs, but the outcome is oil, which they say is selling extremely well in China. Is this type of exotics? So what happens? These big companies, or not so big, began to secure so-called vakh. Have no idea where it comes from, the word. Sounds Russian to me, but I could not find any origin. It might be Chinese. I consulted a Chinese specialist on the issue. He suspects that it might be Chinese by her, but he's not certain too. Anyway, in Korean it's known as vakh. Everybody knows what it is. It essentially was a license and order to harvest and sell a certain amount of certain product. You are the head of the logistics road construction department, and you get vakh for 500 kilos of the frog's oil and, say, 5,000 tons of high quality coal. Question is, you have neither frog's oil or coal. What are you doing? You start looking for somebody, either for a fellow company which has this stuff but has no vakh, and you make a deal. Alternatively, and you can do both at the same time, usually you do both at the same time, you are looking for somebody who will get you the coal. And this is where a local entrepreneur with $50,000 in his pocket comes. And he says, guys, I have money. I know guys who are harvesting frog's oil. And if you help me, if you make sure you order local police in this particular county, for example, that no competitors will be allowed to hunt frogs in this area, I can guarantee you. But, he says, it's not the great days of our glorious great leader in its son. People now are not going to work for free, full of enthusiasm. They need to be paid. I will be paying, I will hire workers, I will make a deal with my Chinese friend, because it's not enough to have vakh. Vakh gives you a right to legally export stuff. A right and duty. You have to, once it's issued, you have to do it. But it doesn't give you a right to, they don't care whom you are selling it. You have to find a buyer too. And these private entrepreneurs, they save lots of money, don't you? This is what they are doing. They buy the stuff, they sell it, and they pay an agreed amount of money to this foreign company, which pays a certain part of money up to the budget, As a part of this official flow, you have unofficial flow of rights, and they pocket what is left. And basically they say, I did talk to such people a number of times, even and saw them in operations in China. They basically say that having such deal usually helps, because if they work independently, it's probably slightly more profitable, slightly, but far more risky. Far more risky. So, this is how things are done. But you can go one step further, because you can get rich by selling ginseng and frogs and even coal, but you can get even richer if you start producing essentially some stuff for sale. And this is how private, real, serious private businesses, largely in seafood, in fishing and mineral extractions were born. Say there is a company, a foreign trade company, which is controlled by the military, probably because of this agreement. I will not tell you which part of the military. Have I been able to tell you, you will be laughing, but I cannot say so, probably. I cannot be too specific. There is, so it is this man, who exactly in the military does this type of business. This part of this company, they have a vacuum regularly to sell high quality coal to China. And there is a guy who made a deal. He did not tell them, I will buy coal. No, he said, I will dig coal out. I will start a coal mine, actually 3 mines. So what did he do? Wonderful. He hired geologists. He paid huge, yes, Peter knows whom I'm talking about. He hired his geologists. He paid them huge consultancy fees, which would be equivalent, they usually measure stuff not in North Korean won, which is very unstable, but either in foreign currency, usually Chinese yuan, occasionally US dollars, or in standard sets of rice, or kilos of rice in this case. 500 kilos of rice to one geologist, yes? He hired a team of people whom he believes to be the best coal geologists in the country. So they did a survey of the abandoned mines, small mines. He had no money to develop a big mine. He was interested. He found 4 small mines, which had good deposits. He did not hire workers. Another person whom I'm going probably to talk very briefly hired workers. He did not, because it was done by the military. So the military provided him with unpaid workforce. The soldiers were working in at his mines. And he housed them, and he was responsible for housing, for dress, and for food of these people. And he believes, again, you never trust an employee, so the employer who tells you that his workers are happy. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. But he believes they were happy because they were well fed and they ate meat, pork every day. Of course, no beef. Beef is a forbidden food in North Korea. If you don't know, you cannot eat food. But if you eat pork, you can still tell. Not usually, some people don't eat pork. So he houses people. He fed them well. He provided them with work uniform, and they were very happy because it was a bit risky, but not much more risky than do the normal military service. So they were working in one shift, only one shift. He could not secure, even though he paid a lot of bribes to the local power grid manager, he could not secure round-the-clock electricity supply. So he had to, his mines were operational only when they, only 8 to 10 hours a day when he had electricity. So he produced coal. Coal was sorted out. High quality coal was sent to China. But it had to have, sorry, I'm not a coal specialist. They say 3,000 kilocalories, I'm not sure. Yes. I don't know what they were talking about. I understand it's sort of energy output. If there's such a coal, it could be exported to China. If not, it has to be farmed sold domestically. So he hired few salespersons, all women, who went to local factories looking for factories which would buy coal. And so low quality stuff was sold domestically, high quality stuff went to China. And again, he was paying a certain amount of money. He was delivering a certain amount of coal to fill the back demand, and he pocketed everything else, and he had a wonderful lifestyle. And another person, actually the person whom I mentioned, the police guy who began his business from selling protective species and occasionally Cairo-era celadons to China. It was a big business. I know somebody who was among the first people who began to sell it. 1982. Yes. Anyway, people then he had this restaurant as a side show, and then he and his brother they decided to start a gold mine. And they did run, and his brother still runs a gold mine private gold mine in North Korea, protected by one of the party foreign trade companies. Saved him, found an old disbanded mine, consulted the experts, hired people, had to hire people, and he was again paying them rations. And he hired people, and he uses and he even began to sell gold dust to and small nuggets to Chinese. So private gold mine operation. Sometimes, as a matter of fact, it's very common in the seafood industry. But it's surprising, I've never seen anybody who many people whom I have met, it was a side show. I've never talked to a professional seafood person. I know such people exist, and it's one of the most common areas. It's probably more common than even mining for big businesses. But I've never seen I've seen people who were involved. I've never seen a person who was a professional, lifelong operator of a seafood business. Then you could go further. Say a diesel oil, kerosene. Kerosene? Yeah, kerosene production factory. This person, with good connections and good money, went to the government, bribed a couple of good level, high level officials, made a deal with a non-functioning oil refinery. Being an engineer by training, and obviously a very good engineer, he designed his own equipment to process the crude oil which was delivered by the US as a part of the Kyoto Agreement. And they produced kerosene for sale. And the government even sent teams who checked the quality. He had all certificates, and he was very proud of his ability to start from the scratch to build such a factory. Then in 2002, shipping of the crude oil from the US was stopped because of the first or second nuclear crisis. And well, never mind, he was not ruined. He found some other ways to make good money. And he became rich, and when he got old, he decided enough is enough. I better move into South Korea, and recently we had a very nice coffee not far away from here in Moscow. And he's unlike many of these people with whom you are talking, you always have a feeling that you are talking to this kind sort of, adventurer, mysterious crime criminal under a kind of underlayer. He is not like that. I can easily imagine such a person running an oil refinery, say in the Soviet era Russia or in South Korea nowadays. He was an engineer, an organizer, and manager in a businessman who was not very happy about bribing and rushing here and there and doing illegal stuff. And one of the reasons he is here, he says, I decided I don't want to deal with illegal stuff, and it's too risky and too tiring, I don't want it. I have had enough money. Well, anyway, taking my family and getting it.
This type of operation. And it's the second group, as I have said. I promised said three groups. First, we have the small people who just make deals with the local administration for official donation plus some rights, registering their small businesses as state-owned. Then you have people who use the foreign trade companies, which has a great deal of power and managerial freedom as a cover for large-scale operations. Then you have a third group, which are not well investigated yet, but it exists and it's quite important. I will just mention it. Because North Korean managers of big state factories are increasingly independent. They are not officials who exist just to deliver a certain amount of the product of their items their factories producing. They are increasingly behaving as private entrepreneurs. And they are making good money. They are looking for sales. They are not just sitting and waiting for supplies to be delivered according to the instructions from Pyongyang. They are looking for sales. They are looking for people who are interested in their products. They are looking for supplies. They have more freedom in hiring and firing people. And sometimes they break the law. Pretty much everybody breaks the law. Everything is illegal in North Korea, but government doesn't care. And it's how things are operational. So we have three groups. Well, you can ask your questions. I do not know answers. And I believe that nobody knows answers, but I might be wrong. First, how many these people are around, and what is their share of the economy? I do not know. And I don't see how we can make any realistic estimate about their numbers. Say if we are talking about service industry, restaurant industry, small-scale retail trade, these people, these private enterprises or pseudo-state enterprises, private enterprises like small restaurants and shops, clearly constitute a majority of all things, all enterprises which are operational. If they are talking about mining and say oil refineries, it's clearly a minority. But does it mean 5% or 25%? I don't know. Second question is, and I strongly suspect that Marshal Kim Jong-un himself doesn't know it either. Because on paper, they don't exist. If you look at paper, this oil refinery was a good old Soviet-style, Stalin-style, centrally planned economy style refinery. So, but I suspect that these people are sufficiently large in number. Why? Physically. As I have mentioned, the economy is recovering, and there is a minor consumption boom, which is not limited to Pyongyang. Very often people go to Pyongyang, come back, they see that things are not that bad, and they say, wow, but it must be Pyongyang only. Well, it's largely Pyongyang, but not only. What's happening? To give you some ideas about power of the new North Korean money, let's talk about one very important indicator, the real estate prices. A sort of extreme case, a house, a good apartment, which was bought for $5,000 in the early 2000s, was recently last year sold for $160,000 or $50,000 US. Пирог очень много. It's exceptional. Don't see even the best apartments are not that expensive. But on the average, we can say that over the last 10 years, the real estate prices in Pyongyang increased something like 20 times. Something. Depends on how you measure. A good apartment in Pyongyang now would cost between, roughly say, 60 and 80,000 US dollars. And all apartments something like 30,000 US dollars. A good apartment very high on a high-rise building, above say the 10th floor, $5,000 to $10,000. Why? Water supply. Or very frequently no water. And a kind of a small house on the outskirts, same price. But if you look at prices in smaller cities, smaller towns around the border, you see the same figures. Say in Hveron, a cheap house would cost you $2,000 or $3,000. A good place in one of few apartments they have in excess of $10,000. In Musan, they recently sold for $20,000. And what is interesting, another interesting part, a significant part, clearly a majority of these new apartments are really built for sale. So, above mentioned managers of the construction companies, they build houses, but the apartments are not distributed as it used to be the case. But the apartments are sold on the market price. You have, also you have, restaurant boom I have mentioned. You have a growing number of the private cars, which, as you easily guess, are usually registered as state-owned cars. You can technically have a private car in North Korea, but it's seriously painful when it comes to pretty much everything, registration, technical checks, everything. So it's much easier for you to register your private car as a state property. Like these people of whom I was talking, register their trucks and buses. So there is a growing number of the private cars. Computers are very frequently seen around. There is a minor renovation boom in Pyongyang when people are paying money to have bathrooms installed in their apartments. Because in the old apartments, with very few exceptions, you would not have bathrooms. In some places, you would not even have toilets. You suppose you probably had one bathroom per floor, or maybe everything on the first floor if it was not very high. And now people are paying money, roughly $1,000, to have a bathroom with a water heater installed in your house. So there is a great, these people, I'm talking about something which is significant in scale. So there is a great deal of such people. How much money do they have? Good question again. Looks like that basically, if you have few $10,000 operational capital, you are rich. Few $100,000, you are seriously rich. And there are people who have probably up to few $1 million. And once again, I'm not talking about officials. Pretty much everybody has to have connections with the officialdom, but these people are no officials. And the last remark. Recently, I saw this reports about, imports of luxury goods to North Korea, which are always explained by the journalists as a sign that Kim Jong-un is rewarding his faithful. I strongly suspect that most of these imports, luxury goods like, cheap Chinese cars or high-quality French cognac, most of these imports don't go to the government officials, but go to these new rich people, who love to, like all rich people across the globe, since times immemorial, they like to show off. Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, one of the ways to show off, probably getting a bit outdated, still possible, to buy a fridge. Fridge is a status symbol in the borderland areas. Why? Funny thing is, you cannot use it there. Because you need reliable electricity supply. There is one thing. You can say, what about generators? There are individual generators in each houses. But they are very expensive to run. They often break. And they are very noisy. They create problems with your neighbors. So you can run it for a few hours, but not forever. If you are rich, what can you do? You can bribe a local power grid manager and connect illegal cable. As a matter of fact, it did happen in South Korea in the 1960s.
And or alternatively, not power grid manager, but some military installation. I know that a large scale, how to say, somebody who gives money for big interest, somebody very successful in usury, and of course you have private banking too, and foreign exchange, foreign currency trade. He made a deal with the local security police headquarters in a small city, so technically he is a criminal who should be arrested and shot immediately. But air conditioning in his house works because his house is connected by an illegal cable with the local secret police headquarters. So it's North Korea nowadays. Well, I think it's over, and probably it's time to start answering questions.
So, anybody here?
What about the recent?
Yeah. Is it, sorry. Good call. Yes. Is there like a loan shark type of organization and mafia run?
Funny thing, no. With my Russian experience, I was always looking for any kind of people whom Edward Walker described as violent entrepreneurs. It's how he politely described Russian mafia. And he is a very good sociologist of the Russian mafia, who provided me with a good medical staff, which, as he assured me, will help me when I'm talking to the loss of money, especially in China, because I complained that such talks as you include an overconsumption of alcoholic beverages. And he said that for him it's a professional risk, so he presented me some kind of drug which I never used, however, so it happened around how maybe I lasted before my next ministry. But, well, seriously speaking, I always was interested in this type of activities, very little. It seems that North Korean government somehow manages to keep a nearly perfect monopoly of violence. I ask people, I say you a lady who said that she was buying wholesale footwear, and she went to Rason market, which was from Musan, it's about maybe 250 kilometers, with essentially bags full of cash in the middle of the town, and asked her whether it was risky. She said, oh, it was so risky, unpaved roads, slippery roads, we had so many traffic accidents. It simply did not happen to her, did not occur to her, that going across to the southern country with 5 or 10 kilos of cash is risky, not because your back can hit to the, down the mountain. What is funny? Very low level of crime in general. There are murders, there have been many things, but surprisingly, even in the middle of Karen, I came across very few cases when somebody was attacked for food. I did see the victims, I saw the stories, but for such a level of tension, it's unbelievably non-violent place.
Any other questions?
The North Korean transaction with Chinese. Chinese is a very important role, and for the role Mr. Jang Sung-taek has pivotal role intimidating the North Korean economy and the Chinese economy. But he was eliminated by his young cousin. And what impact?
I do not know. What is important, what is clear, you are right. Most of the interaction, including interaction of the private businesses, is with China. It's the major seller and the major buyer. And it's also clear that Chancellor Turkey had a certain adverse impact on North Korean trade and interaction with China. It's too early to say, however, how serious it's going to be. there were reports that the first quarter of this year there was a minor decrease, I'm not sure, 2 or 3%, minor decrease of North Korea's trade with China. But they are talking about official trade. Some of the part of which are actually unofficial. Is it because it's private stuff also very often sell using the wax, which anyway. So there was some decline. Is it going to be serious? I don't know. Is it going to last? I don't know.
We understand that there's no private ownership of property in it. You talked about buying and selling apartments. Can you comment, is that also under a party or government cloak, or is it really privately owned? And while you're commenting on it, if you could comment on the collapsed apartment incident of 2 weeks ago, please.
Well, talking about the past. Technically, if you want to be legalistic, but I don't want to be legalistic, you are not buying property. You are selling and buying ipsa, which is your right to move into a particular apartment. If you want to have details how it used to be operated and how it used to operate, because in North Korea, you have no right to buy and sell apartments unless it's your private property. Contrary to the common assumption, there is a small number, really small number, of real estate which is legally private property in North Korea. Long story, but it's very rare case. It's done, but it's rare. Having said that, if you, in most cases, I would say 95%, at least maybe 99, are indeed state property. But from the late 1980s, they allowed citizens to swap their apartments within a certain safe jurisdiction. Because moving away from your jurisdiction is legally extremely difficult. You cannot normally leave the place where you reside unless there are special, unless you are called. But within your jurisdiction you can swap. In the past, you had to be very creative because what happened in the past, you, the old owner and the new owner, technically not owner, user and new user, yes, old user, you went to the city council and you swap your ipsa, which were for all practical purposes property papers, which were not called property papers, but usage right papers. Yes? And in the past, you had the person who was living in an apartment had to prove that he had a place to go. But now, this demand is normally neglected. So they don't really care, they don't control where this person goes after he or she surrenders his or ipsa to a new owner. So technically it's a reissue of ipsa changing the name in the, well, we can say property title, but it's ownership, usage title if you like. And how it's done, in most cases.
In the apartment?
And the very further, but what can I say? Well, in Seoul, Wow apartment, 1970, yes, April 1970 here. You remember the collapse of the Wow apartment in April 1970, which made Kim Jong-un to resign from his position of Seoul mayor. He was the best mayor Seoul has ever had. Having said that, why did they report it? Well, there are two competing theories. I'm largely supportive of one of the theories, but not absolutely certain. Some people say that it is at the beginning of glasnost because they admitted it. I don't think so, because we have seen it with Yongchon incident. People sort of forgot that last month, on the 22nd of April last year, this year, 22nd of April last month, there was a 10 years since Yongchon disaster, a massive explosion equivalent to roughly 1 kiloton. It was roughly 1 kiloton explosion on the Yongchon station. Very interesting story, which is now largely forgotten. I think that some people here, younger people, don't understand what I'm talking about. But what is important, that Yongchon disaster, Yongchon explosion, was also reported officially by the North Korean media. Same reason. I believe that they understood. They understand they cannot possibly have collapse of a 23-story building in the middle of the capital. Had it happened not in Pyongyang but in another city, they probably would not report it. But there are too many eyes around, including foreigners. Same was the Leningrad disaster. It was a massive explosion, 15 kilometers, actually 12 kilometers straight from the Czech border. So Czechs saw it. And it was a station through which pretty much every single visitor of North Korea who takes train has to pass. So it would be known immediately. And because it also happened on the day when the armored train of the dear leader passed the station, and there are some probabilities it was an assassination attempt. And from the WikiLeaks papers, we now know that Kim Jong-il, until his death, believed that it had been an assassination attempt, which doesn't necessarily mean it was an assassination attempt, but it was believed. So, well, they decided that politically prudent to admit something they could not possibly hide. I believe it was the case again, because they knew that they were not going to hide such an incident. Talking about yesterday, 2 days before, about large number of people being executed, well, maybe not. You remember Hyun Sung-won? Yeah? Hyun Sung-won from Inha music band.
Yeah.
Who was, by God knows, believed to be former girlfriend of Kim Jong-un. I think she
came back to life.
Yes. Everybody was talking about her death, about her various execution. But unfortunately, I had to remain silent, but now it's probably time to say that 2 weeks later, one of my friends had a nice beer with her. And she made some jokes about her execution. And now, but back then I promised not to tell. Anyway, so.
Professor Lankov, you mentioned a statistic, maybe 60%, I don't remember, the amount of foreign export which was earned from selling coal.
43.
43. Okay, 43. There is another academic of Russian extraction with a last name that ends with OAV who says a lot about rare earth minerals. He's very excited about the value of rare earth minerals for North Korean economy. Could you speak a little bit about that, please?
Rare earth. Well, with all due respect to this academic of the Russian extraction, who used to be my student 25 years ago, I would say that he might be right. But you know, I've been doing it for 30 years. And during the 30 years, every few years, I saw somebody full of enthusiasm who begins to talk to me about massive discoveries. It's almost always rare earth, which is allegedly going to make North Korea a kind of East Asia's Kuwait or Qatar. I've heard this, as I have said, I hear this story from the average once every 5 years. Every time, which does not mean that, again, I have to be careful. It's just, you know, when it's like currency reform in 2005. One of the reasons why the entrepreneurs were not ready, they heard about currency reform so many times, so they ceased to take this reform seriously, and then it ceased. So I'm not saying that it's not happening, but this experience makes me very, very skeptical.
Any other question?
Yeah, just one question. Can you say something about the intellectuals in North Korea? Are there any? In your work, you talk a lot about what's going on in the economy. Is there any knock-on effect in relation to intelligentsia, the arts, culture in North Korea?
Yes. Look at this group of people sitting in that corner, especially this smiling woman who happens, Dr. Professor Tatiana Gabrusенko, who happens to be my wife, among other things, and she is providing this moral support, while my mother is providing our daughter with physical support and some moral support too. Having said that, it's your. I would not fantasize because it was she and we have a lot of other people. Emmanuel Kim from the City University of New York City University, I'm not sure which way. Yeah. Jack and some other people here who knows much more than I do on this issue. So probably you should ask them. Because again, or maybe you should, I hope some of them or all of them eventually will come here and tell you. Because again, I'm largely about shadow dealers, corrupt officials, is the type of people I understand that.